2020 by delivering to the press such notice and posting the same at the municipal building and file with the office of the township clerk. All rise, salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance
to the
to
flag
the flag
of the
of the
United
United
States of
States
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty, justice
justice
for
for all.
So Danelle, you're here, right? You didn't have to step away for a second?
Nope, I'm good. We're good. They got picked up.
There you go. Look at that. Everything works.
Yeah,
I want to do a roll call, Danelle.
sure. Mike Barrett,
Here.
Kristen Wheaton,
present.
Dave McDermott,
here.
Andrew Pitzker,
Present.
Paul Carney,
Present.
and Jean Murphy.
Here.
And then our professionals, we have Rich Winter and myself.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming, Rich. All right, I want to
pleasure.
first, I want to welcome, yeah, thanks, Rich. I want to welcome Jean to the MUA. Thanks for, we're going to get right started. We appreciate you joining the MUA. We're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
So we're going to get right into it. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Paul Carney, seconded by Dave McDermott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No abstentions? Danelle, do we have public?
I don't see anybody. I think you're safe. We don't have anyone attending.
No. Check again. Going once. Want a motion, make a motion to close to the public?
I'll motion to close to public.
Motion made by Andy,
I'll second it.
second by Paul Carney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No abstentions? Moving right along. All right, we're going to go into the approval of the minutes. Now, I'm going to, all I can tell you, let me just make a mention of this. I did reach out to John Terry. He did tell me he thought he had maybe some notes from one of the meetings. He said he was going to check his computer. I have not heard back from him. So that was my one last attempt to maybe, John would come up with something for one of those meetings. I could not come up with anything. Danelle, how do you want to go through approval of all these minutes?
Hold on, I just want to bring up the actual individuals that we have. So the first one for the August 15th meeting, I believe that everyone was present at that meeting. So I know that we have 3 members on the board that can vote on that. The issue with these minutes is obviously we don't have anything on file, so we don't have a recording or anything. And after speaking with the attorney, he did advise that we can adopt the minutes as a matter of necessity, because obviously we do have to have minutes on file. So based on what we have for records on past resolutions that went through and were approved by the board, we kind of just put something together so that we could have something on file that represented minutes. But I think for something like the August 15th, if Dave, Kristen, or Paul wanted to motion and second that, if they want to approve these minutes as they are, they can probably do that. I think that's probably the best way to go for this set of minutes. And I think that we should do them individually.
I agree, Danelle. So let's did everybody had a chance to review I mean, the ones that were there, August 15, 2019 minutes. Any discussion or any comments?
I took the notes, so I'll make a motion to accept them as read. I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't.
It's got a motion from Dave McDermott. Do we have a second?
Just give me a second here. Donna, I just want to clarify something. So
Yeah.
it's going to be in some form of record or something, some kind of notation that these notes are, or these minutes are best of our recollection type notes, that they're not a verbatim type thing in case they get questioned somewhere along the line.
Yeah, well, these are, if you take a look at the 8:15, even the 11:07 ones, and even the 12:19 minutes, which I was actually at the 12:19 meeting, because it's the meeting that we introduced the budget. What we did was we kind of had to backtrack, look at the agendas that we had. All of the resolutions we were aware passed. So even though we don't have like votes and seconds or any sort of real commentary, I don't know. I mean, obviously the meeting was open to the public. I don't know if anybody spoke at the public hearing or public meeting, because nobody, there's no recording and no notes. So it's a very generic, if you take a look at it, instead of writing, comments were made, it basically says like motion was made, seconded and approved by majority of the members. Records of comments are not available. The same thing with reports from the professionals. It just says records of comments are not available. And there is kind of a blanket statement at the top of each set of these minutes that says that these are a synopsis of the minutes. Copies of the recording were not available. And minutes with specific roll call votes, comments, and attendance records are not on file. So we are approving this, and it says that we're approving it through the doctrine of necessity. So I think, again, and if Rich wanted to just chime in if he wanted to, we do have to have minutes on file. So again, there's nothing really in here that says this is what people said, because we don't have anything on record that says what they said.
Yeah.
Danelle.
Go ahead, Rich.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry. Danelle accurately stated our conversation and what it is that's before the board right now. So as best we can present a record of what occurred, that's what we're doing, because we have to present a record of what occurred. And that's where the doctrine of necessity comes in. And I think she did a great job putting everything together and making it clear that this is not verbatim. It's as best as we know what happened.
Yeah, my only other question is, back in 2019, I know I missed meetings, a couple of them along the way, because I was going through some eye surgeries at the time. And if there's no record of attendance, okay, I'm not 100% sure that I could say that I was at the meeting. You know what I mean?
Hey, Paul,
I'm sorry.
Paul, I'm sorry, Mike. Paul, do you think you were at the August 15th, 2019 meeting?
I'm not sure.
That was it was the same night as the joint meeting, and I was actually gonna take.
Okay, joint meeting. I was there.
Yeah, everyone was there for this one.
Okay, very good. Well, then I'll second it.
But we're not going to do a roll call vote, right? It's just going to be because they're not necessarily verbatim, and they may not reflect.
I think there should still be a vote, whether you wanted to do a roll call or just the three people that were there that are present here. There should still be a vote. You can't
There
just
has to be a vote. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be a roll call vote.
I mean, a vote's a vote, whether we do a roll call vote or all in favor, opposed. I mean,
Well, the only ones who can vote on this are Kristen, Paul, or Dave. because they were the only ones that potentially could have been there. So Dave McDermott made a motion, Paul seconded. Nell, you want to take a roll call?
Sure. Dave McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Carney,
Yes.
Kristen Wheaton,
Yes.
And Mike and Andy, I'm going to abstain. I'll go over there. Same thing with Andy.
Abstaining.
All right.
The question being, and Gene, I guess you, whether you're not voting because we're all here. Quick question. I mean, do you even have to ask in this track of us abstaining since we weren't even in the meeting? And at the beginning, we said only the people who were in that meeting can either vote or abstain. So it's really, yes, they can vote yes or no or abstain. We don't even get an opportunity to do either of that from the procedures. Am I correct?
Correct. There's not, the members who are eligible to vote are the only ones voting. They can vote yes, vote no, or vote or abstain. The non-voting members aren't saying anything. So it'll be, the record will reflect, 3-0, 2-1, 0-3, whatever it might be. But there won't be any abstentions. It's the non-voting members.
All right. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate that. Does that clear that up, Andy?
That clears that up. I don't have to say a word until we get through these meeting minutes.
All right. All right. Let's go to the next set of minutes. And that would be November 7th, 2019.
So these ones, we have no record of anyone who would be available, who was at the meeting.
Right.
So again, this could be something, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone could make a motion and a second on this, considering that there's like no information.
Correct.
Have to be approved.
This is truly where the doctrine of necessity comes into play.
So correct me if I'm wrong, meaning that Kristen, Paul, and Dave were not in attendance. So therefore, the entire MUA reviews these and gets to vote and approve these minutes. Am I correct?
Correct. And we have no idea who was there, so you all can vote.
All right, I'll make a motion to pass November 7th, 2019. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Andy. Danelle, you want to take a roll call?
Sure. Andrew Pitzker,
Yes.
Kristen Wheaton,
I will abstain because I was not at the meeting.
Mike Fury,
Yes.
Dave McDermott,
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Paul Carney.
I gotta have to abstain. I wasn't there.
I think we're getting wrapped around the axle a little bit here. These minutes that are being voted on, we have no certainty.
But we
as
know
to-
that we know that we weren't there, Rich.
Oh, you personally know that you weren't at that meeting?
Yeah,
Well,
the three of us know that we
Yeah.
weren't there.
Okay, but you're not voting on them as being accurate reflections of what actually occurred and saying, yes, this is what happened based upon my recollection. We're adopting these minutes because we have to adopt the minutes, and Danelle has put them together as best she can. Just as, so going forward, any minutes that we don't have a clear understanding of what occurred that we're adopting through the doctrine of necessity, you all can vote on.
Okay. Then I'll vote yes.
Yeah, I'll vote yes.
All right, you can change
Okay.
Kristen to yes also.
This is quite a mess. Let me tell you.
Okay,
to
we're
be
almost
honest,
done with it. We're almost through it. It's going to be okay.
yeah, I know. I just, this is such a mess. All right, let's move on to December 19th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to
Um,
approve the minutes of December 19th, 2019.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Seconded by Dave McDermott.
Yeah, Rich, we have 2 members that were present that were at this meeting, so I should just take their votes, correct?
Yes, anytime we have at least some certainty as members who are
Right.
present, those 2 members should be voting. When we don't have any certainty, then it's everyone can vote.
Okay, so the roll call
Good.
is only, and Mike, if you want to ask the roll call.
Kristen Wheaton.
Donnell, do you know who was there?
Yeah, it was just you, Kristen, and Dave.
Okay. So,
I have it from the budget documents.
okay, so yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Dave McDermott.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right. Now moving on to January 30th, 2020.
There were 3 members present, Kristen, Paul, and Dave.
This is Chris. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 30th, 2020.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Kristen, seconded by Paul. Roll call, Danelle?
Kristen Wheaton,
Yes.
Paul Carney,
Yes.
Dave McDermott.
Yes.
Fantastic. We got through it, Danelle.
I think there's one more set.
We got one more set. I
One
knew
more
that.
set. And you can all vote on this one.
Wait a minute. That's
Almost all.
and that is the meeting of February 20th, 2020. Approval of the minutes. Any comments, questions on that? Those minutes?
No.
Entertain a motion. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just say for the record here, these minutes were recorded, but also there are synopsis from Rich Warner taking these minutes, if I remember correctly.
These were recorded, so we used the recording for these.
We used recording. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
All right. Entertain a motion.
I motion that we accept these minutes for February
Andy,
2020.
I will second that motion.
Seconded by Dave McDermott. Roll call, Danelle?
Dave McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Carney,
Yes.
Kristen Wheaton,
Yes.
Mike Fury,
Yes.
Andrew Pitsker.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. Next on the agenda is number 7, the RFQ for engineering services. We received several proposals, and I asked Kristen Wheaton if she wanted to take the lead on doing an evaluation of all the proposals. I guess Danelle first. Explain all the ones that you received, and then I'll turn it over to. Actually, Kristen, why don't you explain what you did? Because you said you did send something out today. Late in the day. I had a chance to review it. I thought it was excellent. Just
Same
go
here.
over what what you were thinking, and just we'll take it from there.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot here to review. I'm still kind of getting through them, but I just put together a little evaluation matrix to help us kind of rate and rank them.
Mhm.
There's 5 packages, so we can rate them 1 through 5. for the couple of criteria that were in the RFQ. So those are the criteria essentially that I put into that matrix table. One, I don't have it open. One thing that we need to decide on is if we want to use that kind of matrix. I mean, it might kind of box us in. We might want to have a little more fluidity to our conversation, or maybe it's just kind of a starting point for us, and then we have a conversation and, you know, and evaluate pros and cons. But so we could kind of, you know, we could do that matrix. As I say, it might be it might be a little stiff for our needs. We could alternatively, you know, individually come up with a recommendation for one firm or another, and then have a conversation and you know, just discuss the pros and cons of each firm and what they've proposed and come to an understanding. So there's a couple different ways that we could go about it.
Chris, the only, I thought it was, what you did was great. I wanted to do the same thing. I think it's the best way. It's the most transparent way of evaluating all the proposals. The only item or criteria that was not included, and I wanted to talk about it, is do we want to do an interview process with the engineer? And with that, would that be helpful whether it's interviewing all of them or just some of them? But I wanted to get everybody's feedback on an actual interview, a one-on-one interview.
I think that makes sense, especially because we don't know the people, you know, besides the people that we've been working with for the most part. So maybe we use, you know, the kind of the evaluation matrix as a screening tool. We narrow it down to 2, maybe 3, and invite them in for interviews.
That makes sense to me. I also like the matrix. I know when we look through proposals at my job, we do it in a very similar fashion where we weight things and score them in that manner. And it seems to work out pretty well. And you'd be surprised how many people end up giving pretty close to the same scores when you have a specific way of doing things and everybody has to look at it in the same manner. So I do like using a matrix like that.
Okay.
When I saw this, I've played with it here this afternoon, Kristen, and I like this. And I saw you had the other factors. And one of the things I was thinking about is when we struggle with this is what their service offer is, just like we have with Mott & McDonald, is that they don't handle certain pieces of the business where, you know, when I was looking at Van Cleef, they handle more of the construction and servicing of things like that. So I didn't know whether we should have that as a third or another column in there, or keep that consideration in the other factors. So that was one thing that I came up with, is that I was looking at the service array or service offer. And I think that's going to be important for us going forward. And that was my only inputs after looking at these 5 quotations and just trying to sort out their depth. That was what I was looking at. So that's just my only input. I don't know what anybody else thinks about.
I think that's.
I have no problem with that. I know, Gene, maybe you need give you some background on why, we did this. We actually put together an RFQ to look at different projects that we may be possibly interested in. And so we got a good response. We got 5 different engineering firms to give something back. And I think all of them responded to everything that we were looking for in some fashion. So Chris, if it's an interview process, by the way, I'll just say right away, I did ask Andy if he was interested, or Dave, they're interested in actually, doing the interviewing. I'm probably not going to be able to do a one-on-one interview. Do you think that we should, I think you suggested, do this matrix, come up with a ranking, and then narrow it down to 2 or maybe 3, and then interview them, and then make a decision based on that? Do you think that's the best way to do it?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the best way. In terms of the interview process, are you suggesting, Mike, that it be kind of a subcommittee as opposed to the board?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, if we had to do an interview process to get all 5 or now 6 all together, do an interview, I don't know. That's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to do. So like a subcommittee of 2 people with Danelle, and I think that would be adequate. Unless, you know, anybody, I mean, if anybody wants to be part of the interview process, I'm not going to say you can't be part of the interview process, but I think it's going to be everybody there. You know, some of us are working. I can't be there. I know it'll be difficult for some others, but I just wanted, I think it has to be done to narrow it down. So, but I think that what we should do is everyone, you know, you got everyone's suggestion, Chris. If you want to add a column, like as Andy suggested, finalize it, right? And then all of us have copies of the proposals to go ahead and review them, and then do a scoring, and then try to send that to Danelle in a reasonable amount of time. Now we have to decide what's a reasonable amount of time to get that done.
Maybe next week.
So, yeah, I would. Danelle, what's the next date of our next meeting?
It is. Sorry, I have to get the 17th.
September 17th.
Yeah.
So if we were able to get all the scoring done by September 11th and get it to Danelle, that would provide enough time for Danelle to collate all the evaluations, right? Does that make sense, Danelle?
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of doing, of making some sort of taking action on the 17th for any special engineering projects or appointing a special engineer for a project, we should probably do it a little bit before then, unless you just want to talk about, you know, the top 2 on the 17th, and then.
Yeah, I think that's how it should be. I think we should send in the evaluations, you know, and discuss the top candidates, you know, amongst ourselves this way, you know, because there's going to be areas where, you know, you're going to see things one way, I'm going to see things another, and if we just have a little discussion, it might, you know, clear the cobwebs or clear the air and make, you know, let us focus in on things a little bit better.
So get the evaluations by the 11th, and we can discuss it at the next September 17th meeting, but not take action till possibly October.
Yeah.
I have a question. I mean, if you're looking to choose somebody, is anyone reaching out to maybe other municipalities that they're working with? You know, as opposed to just an interview process?
I think that's part of the review process, but I looked at one of them, which was dealing with Ridgewood. I have not actually contacted the people, but I was looking on their site to see what they had. And I didn't get much from it, but I was looking at things like that where they took care of the Ridgewood site, what were they doing, and I started to dig into that, but I've got a lot more digging to do to figure what their services are at the same time. But yeah, I think once we narrow it down to the 2 or the 3, then we start looking for reference. I think you would call them points of references and start asking those people, how did they work with you? What were their downfalls? What aspects of the project worked well? What aspects didn't work well? I agree with you, Gene. But right now, just getting through, I have 5. Where did somebody mention 6?
No, there's 5.
No, there's 5. I might have got the wrong number, Andy. There's 5.
Thank you. Did I miss something?
And Gene, I just forwarded them over to you. My apologies when we were talking about this. I just realized that it was sent out before the appointment. So you have all of them now. And if anybody, I have a set of actual like paper bound ones.
I would love that.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a mistake, I think, on my part on the submittals. We should have asked for 10 paper copies. Yeah.
Okay.
When I stare at the computer too long, I start losing it.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
What I can do is I'll print out the ones that we have, and then if you guys want to set up a time to come in to the office, they'll be available here with Colette. You know, just let me know when you're gonna come by.
Yeah, Danelle, I do not need a hard copy.
Okay.
Hard copy would be helpful for me, so I'll take it.
So evaluate them. Give your evaluation, get your evaluation back to Danelle and Colette. Then we can have a discussion on the 17th. And when's the meeting in October, Danelle?
That's a good question. It should be the 1st and the 15th, I believe. But let me check.
Yeah. So October 1st.
The 15th we have to change.
Oh yeah, is that the one that we had to? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's October 1st, right?
October 15th and 22nd are the 2 days that we have.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we couldn't do the 15th. Oh wait. Is it the 15th? When is the day that the town council had their meeting?
The 15th. I'm gonna go back and double check.
Yeah. Do you happen to know? Because that's why we're
Probably the 15th,
Mm-hmm.
because the 12th is Columbus Day.
I think it was just switched on the website by mistake.
Yes,
I think we
probably
should
the
still be having
15th.
one October 1st and then the 22nd. I think that's what was decided.
okay. So
Check with what was, because I believe that's what we ran in the paper. It was originally the 1st and the 15th, but it's supposed to be the 15th that comes off our website, not the 1st. So it should be the 1st and the 22nd.
all right. So does this sound reasonable? Evaluate. We'll discuss it on the 17th, and then possibly take action on the 1st. I know that's aggressive time schedule, but is that reasonable for everybody?
I think so.
Well, we're not going to take action without having interviews, right? So we're skipping the interview step, or you're saying that that's happened by the subcommittee before then. I think what I heard from the board last time we discussed this was that everybody wanted to weigh in on the selection. So I'm not sure the subcommittee is.
Well, no, I was proposing when we interview, it'll be a subcommittee to interview, but the entire MUA evaluates the proposals.
But that would mean that the subcommittee is making the final selection if they're the only ones doing the interviewing.
I think I agree with Kristen. We have to present our findings from those 2 interviews back to the committee to make a final decision as a group based on our recommendations.
Can't we just have a special meeting that, for that purpose?
Could do that. Good point.
What, to do like a Zoom interview?
Well, just so that the whole board can participate.
Well, that's reasonable. You want to, so what you're suggesting is then an interview. If there's obviously we don't have to interview Sarin because we know Mont McDonald, but the other 4 possibly line up interviews for all 4 collectively as an MUA, and then we'll interview them as a. I mean, I have no problem doing that.
No, not all of them. No, we're still short. We're still interviewing just a short list. So we're picking 2, maybe 3, to interview. And I think it does include Mont McDonald because Andy just brought up, some places that he thought the competitors might have a broader array of services, and that's the sort of thing that you want to ask, the incumbent. You want to give them a chance to respond to that.
So.
And I agree with that. Well, I agree with that because you're actually not giving the company that's in place an opportunity.
You want to give them this, it has to be an even,
playing field.
yeah, even evaluation. So yeah, I think they deserve the right, if, assuming they're shortlisted, that we would interview whoever's shortlisted. So we could do those interviews. So, I mean, the evaluations can come through Danelle the end of next week. And then from those evaluations, she could send those out and say, okay, here's the shortlisted firms. And then we decide.
Okay.
I mean.
All right. That's reasonable. I understand.
Yeah. So then I don't think we need a meeting to say, okay, we're going to, here's the top 2 or 3. Is that going to be against the rules to decide whether, we're going to interview 2 or 3, by email? No, probably not. So then we just, we say, okay, here's the 2 or 3, and then we try to find a date to have a special meeting to conduct interviews. Maybe it happens on the 17th. That probably makes for a pretty long night, but.
Well, no, not if that's the main agenda, and we limit to that, just interviewing. We can do it that way. I'm just trying to come to a conclusion on the order of how this is going to get done. So evaluate all 5, everyone submitted to Danelle. Then we have to decide, and I guess we have to decide now, do we want to interview the top 3, the top 2? How do you want to do it?
May I make a proposal?
Go ahead.
We have our evaluations completed into Danelle by September 11th. We review them on the 17th. I'm just kind of putting it categorically what we could do here. Categorically, but on the 17th, we discuss and conclude who the 2 or 3 will be. And then we have a special meeting where we can schedule these interviews for sometime around the 24th, 25th, so that we're ready at October 1st to have a final decision. Does that make logical sense?
All right, now this is and I'm going to defer to Rich. Rich, if we have a special meeting, we'd have to advertise that meeting. And
Correct.
I mean, what's your thoughts on this process, Rich? I'd like to hear it from you.
I think, you have enough faith in your board members where you could form a subcommittee to do and authorize the subcommittee to do the narrowing down and make a recommendation as to, you pick the number. There's five applicants. So, ideally you'd get below half, but, at a max 3, but more likely 2. And then at the meeting on the 17th, you could schedule the interviews of those firms, those top 2 firms or top 3 firms, whatever you wanted to do. The legwork already having been done by the subcommittee who you've delegated the authority to do that to. And then that way you solve the issue of board members all being part of the interview process, the final round interview process, and then make your determination on the 1st.
All right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Rich. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we have to form a subcommittee for? Oh wait, I'm sorry. No, that I got it. That makes sense. So does everybody understand how this process is going to work?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
All right,
Let's walk through it so we make sure we're all clear with that. All right, just want to make sure.
So this is how
how you read it.
Yeah, this is how I understand it. We're going to evaluate all 5. All 6 members are going to evaluate all 5. Grade those, give those evaluations to Danelle by September 11th. That's the deadline to submit those evaluations. we're going to, I guess we'd have to authorize the subcommittee to decide from there who we're going to possibly interview on the 17th.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Yes.
So I'd like to, who would want to be on the subcommittee to decide who's going to be interviewed on the 17th? And it would have to be a 2-member subcommittee, right?
Yes.
Yes, it would.
So
I'm happy to be on that subcommittee, Mike.
Kristen will be on that. Anybody else?
I'll work with you, Kristen, if you like.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. I guess just to comment on the date, Mike, I don't know that we're giving the firms enough time to prepare if we're notifying them, you know, on Monday the 13th that we'd like them at our, or 14th that we'd like them at our board meeting on the 17th.
I agree with you. It's not realistic.
You could do that now. You could notify all 5 applicants that you
To
intend
be-
to announce, to be prepared to present on the 17th before the board. You haven't made that your selection yet, but you're gonna, you can give them advance notice now, and if they get the nod, they should be ready.
As an engineer, that would aggravate me because I have to be preparing for something that I didn't know that I would be, you know, have the opportunity to present.
Well, if Danelle notifies all 5 firms tomorrow officially that potentially you'll be interviewed on the 17th, is that reasonable for everybody?
I don't agree with that.
I don't either. You know, if you're going to say that to somebody, they're going to start putting together a presentation, and then, you know, who knows how much time and hours they're going to spend putting a presentation together, and then they're not going to get called.
Yeah, they're spinning their wheels.
I know. I wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. Let me just talk. So what from everyone's saying, probably the more reasonable time frame to interview the firms would be on October 1st. And that would give more than enough time to notify, so we could decide on the 17th, at the 17th meeting, who we're going to interview on the 1st.
I think that's the smart and professional way to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
So is everyone in agreement with that order of events?
Yes.
So Paul's all right. Dave?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Andy?
Yes?
Kristen?
Yes.
And Jean, is that reasonable?
Yes.
What do you
All
think,
right, good.
Danelle? Hang on one second, though. I want to get Danelle, since she's the one doing a lot of the, what's your opinion here?
No, I think that that's reasonable. I'll be honest. I agreed with you. Sorry, Mike, that that's a short period of time to ask for them to prepare. And considering the size of this type of interview, it's not enough time to ask them the start of the week of the 14th to be prepared for the 17th, and I don't think it's fair to ask them to be fully prepared without actually confirming that they would be interviewed. So I think this timeline's better.
All right, and next question I have regarding that is, how does this impact us going forward with everything we have moving right now?
Well, I mean, it sets us back a little bit, but, you know, and we're going to talk shortly, very briefly about it in a minute. But I think, you know, I mean, we have to do what we have to do. It's going to take a little bit of time, but honestly, I haven't heard back from iBank with funding or anything yet, so we can't really move forward on anything.
Right, so let's do it.
Until we hear back from them.
Right, so we'll do our due diligence. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Hold on, my cleaning service is here. Hold on.
Hang on.
All right, so the time frame, if I had to frame it out, you know, if we interview on October 1st, the next meeting after that is October 22nd, it's reasonable we can make a final decision by October 22nd.
Agree.
Yes.
Yeah, that's plausible.
Unless you wanted to have a special meeting to do the interviews before the 1st and then act on it on the 1st.
Right. That's true.
We could have a special
And then
meeting
if-
on the 22nd to do the interviews, perhaps. I mean, I don't know whether we're doing them in person or on Zoom, but
Andy and I did some of the interviews on Zoom, but that was during the lockdown. When we did when we were looking for a secretary.
right.
I think you.
And you know,
I think you. Go ahead, Mike.
If we were going to decide to tell a firm, because now I'm going with what Kristen says, that, giving them time to prepare. Like, we're going to tell firms after we're going to meet on the 17th, and on the 18th, we're going to notify who's going to be interviewed. If you were going to do it on the 22nd, that's not a lot of time to prepare for an interview. And I just, I kind of agree that we have to be professional about giving them an opportunity to do a presentation, when we do the interview. I mean, I think that we're trying to have an aggressive time schedule, but I think we need to be reasonable too. So I think this time schedule is reasonable for everyone involved. Without having a special meeting, I don't know if that's going to be, if we have to do it and decide by October 1st, we obviously we want to get started, and then as we go into the rest of the agenda, there's obviously it's going to impact a lot of the things that we're doing. So we're going to have to go along with this schedule for now. And if anything changes, if anybody has a suggestion, you can reach out to Danelle and let her know. But I appreciate, thanks, Kristen, for the effort. That was great. If you did a great job. If you want to just make that small adjustment that Andy suggested, send it out to everybody, and then we can start the process.
Yeah, and think about the weighting criteria also.
My opinion, what you put down there, I thought it was pretty good. The weighting criteria was excellent.
Okay.
I had no issue.
Right.
I read it, and I understand where you're coming from, and it's right on the money.
So I'll have to, if I add the array of services criteria from, then I'll change something slightly to factor that in.
Right. That works.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on to the subcommittee reports. We'll start with the transfer station subcommittee. There was a meeting. I don't know who wants to lead the discussion on the transfer station subcommittee. There was a meeting. Danelle, we'll start with you because I'm not even sure who was there at the meeting.
Yeah. So both Dave and Andy were there. Andy stepped in for Kristen because Kristen's on the subcommittee for that. So I'm just going to be brief about it because obviously these are all hypothetical discussions that we're having with regards to the transfer station and pump station 2. So we did meet with Dave Bauer and Joe Hession and the township, and obviously the individuals that I mentioned from the MUA. And I think it went really well. I think we're all, and I speak for the board, I think, and the township, we want to move on things. We want to get things done. We don't want to keep talking about things. So I think that it was a very productive meeting. We have a good set of like an action list, a to-do list that we're going to be working on. Dave is going to get us some numbers that he was talking about. We're going to get some engineering reports from Joe Hession from Mountain Creek's engineer with regards to pump station 2. I already reached out to legal. I reached out to Rich and Josh about how this kind of works. And we'll, I informed everyone we'd be following up. Once we get more information. I have a phone call tomorrow with the township's bond counsel to discuss funding with iBank, because I have a couple other questions regarding iBank funding for infrastructure. So that's kind of where we stand. Like I said, I think it was a really great meeting. I don't know if Andy or Dave wanted to say anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was very positive, and everybody seems to be willing to go forward. And Joe Hessian made some observations that it would be to his benefit above all to turn it into to make the transfer station. It would simplify his decision-making process, which was good. And we have plenty of allocation. Now it's just a matter of, like I think at the end we said we had to get the financing settled. We had to get the lawyers, the engineers to draw stuff up, the lawyers to draw up an agreement and move forward.
I have a question. Are you, with the iBank where, Donnell, you're talking about the township funding this? The
Well,
township,
it's pump station 2.
right?
Yeah, so pump station 2, we obviously Mountain Creek is repaying us for that. It's
Right.
always been the intent that the township would take out iBank funding, obviously to rehab.
I'm asking about the transfer station.
So the transfer station would be a part of pump station 2.
So you're
Yeah.
basically what you're looking at is a potential for a much higher financing potential from what the pump station was.
That's actually not my understanding of it. I don't believe it's going to be that much higher of a financing. After speaking with Dave, talking about the infrastructure that would be involved, it did not seem to be as involved as something like a pump station. And again, I mean, Mountain Creek is on the hook for that. So if Mountain Creek chooses to build something larger, they're taking that on.
I realize
Yeah,
that if the township is borrowing the money, and if it's more money, the township would actually be the one borrowing the money with the intent that Mountain Creek is paying us back.
Correct, as they currently do with the existing sewer bonds.
Right, but
I
that,
think-
and I'm just, what I'm just trying to do is look at the original pump station, which was potentially at some point maybe growing into a larger pump station, which now it's a pump station with transfer station. So, because these were conversations obviously that were all had and at various levels. So that's what I'm just trying to wrap my head around is having the township, because it's not the MUA, but it's a township, borrowing extra money.
Yeah, I can may be able to answer the question, Gene. You're correct. It's the township is doing the borrowing of the money. I think once you have an engineer on board and they begin the design, or they start the design, they're going to be able to give a financial estimate of what the pump station is going to cost, and if we integrate a transfer station into it, what would the cost of the transfer station be in relation to the pump station? So that all those costs are going to come out when the engineer does the design. Just to give you some background on the pump station, the existing pump station is in Black Creek. The proposed design, or the design that was done in the past, was designed on the other side of Sand Hill Road near the parking lot, the overflow parking lot, on the other side of Sand Hill Road, not where it exists now. So that was the original design that Dewberry did in the past for Mountain Creek. It was a long time ago, it was about 20 years ago. But obviously that did not include a transfer station. So when they met yesterday, and maybe Andy or Danell, I mean, the discussion came up about a pump station, and then what would the potential cost of a transfer station be? And Danell, was there any kind of rough estimate of we kind of have an idea what the pump station potentially is going to cost, but in relation to the transfer station, was there any discussion of that?
The cost, no, the additional cost, obviously, it would be an additional cost, but I did ask about the specific infrastructure we're talking about. And Dave had mentioned, really that all that you need to do to make it really a transfer station is create a place where the trucks can hook up. And you're also going to include the filtering of, he called it like the rags, stuff that people put into their septics that shouldn't be put into septics, to remove all that before it goes into the pump station. That's really what's going to be involved to really make it a functional transfer station.
Well, we've been talking about transfer station since 2016, actually.
Well, I think we're getting a little closer.
And the pump
here.
station, is that the original size? It's not a larger size. Is it the original size? Is it the original one there?
Well,
no.
Go ahead.
I believe that any kind of proposed pump station may have to be a larger size pump station compared to what's there. The one that's currently there is I believe undersized. I'm pretty certain it's undersized. So it's gonna. My understanding of the cost estimates for the pump station was about $1.5 million. That's where the rough, cost that I understand.
I think
Am I correct about
that number? I think I remember that number somewhere around there.
Andy, what do you think, Andy?
Well, let's just go back a little bit. And the discussions were, first of all, very productive. And having Dave and Joe in the room talking together, you could see that they want to work together. And I thought it was a good dynamics. There was some discussions that Joe talked about from his engineer that pump station 2 may not need as much work as we perceive in some ways, but we need to look at that. But he was open to making sure that we support not only a pump station, but a transfer station. And then once we got Dave was very much saying, I'll help and do what I can, very accommodating. We asked questions about how many gallons are you looking at, what kind of machines are you coming in, what kind of trailers are coming in, so that we can accommodate the right size. And that data is going to be pulled together. So that, and then as Danell mentioned, this transfer station is a pretty simplistic connection according to him, is that, and they can monitor it and we'll make it work. They said they just have to make sure that the material flows downhill, that they have a grinder ahead of it so it takes care of any miscellaneous components that come through when they pump it. And once that's done, it comes through the process. So it looked like we're in agreement. The only thing was just discussing where this turnaround would be for a semi-tractor trailer, which was the length that we're looking at, and what is the amount of gallonage, because one of the things Danell and I talked about is how much do we charge them per gallon to dump there. So that's something we've got in our back pocket to discuss with Dave later on. But the dynamics, those two people sitting with us was, I would say, very positive, and they want to make it work. So I think we've got the right people in the room. I think everybody's ready to go forward. And as Danell said, we want to take action now. We've been talking about this for a long, long time. How do we get it moving? And there seems to be a lot of acceptance of that and working forward to that. Yes, we as the town have to take over, being responsible to manage it, but we own the assets along with Mountain Creek. So that seems to be the way it has to work. I don't know of any other way. So as I said, I saw the meeting as a positive. There was a lot of discussions, and everybody seems to be on the same page and want to make it work. And Joe says if we can do it at a lesser cost, he would be happy with that, but he's willing to put the money into it to make it happen the right way. Am I correct, Danell?
Yes, 100%. I think we saw a really good collaborative effort moving forward. I think it's going to be really good.
I was astounded by it. Yeah, I really was astounded by it.
Yeah, and Joe repeatedly said that he's definitely willing to put more into it and pay for more, because it's going to help out everybody. It's not, yes, it's going to help out Mountain Creek. It's going to help out Earth Care, Wind River, whatever, they're Wind River now. But ultimately, it's going to help the ratepayers and it's going to help the taxpayers. If we can bring in revenue and create revenue streams, now I'm talking on, either side, whether the revenue comes into the MUA or the township, if we can create revenue streams, that decreases our revenues that we need to require from ratepayers or from taxpayers to offset the massive financial burden that the SCUMA bills put on the township. So
Exactly.
So could I just ask, what is the role of Wind River / Earth Care? Why are they part of this? I mean, I know they have septage that they need to dump someplace, but what would be their role otherwise?
If I could just add in, at some point here when we first started speaking about a transfer station, Earth Care, Wind River, they came along and they were willing to actually build one.
Okay.
And then what happened is during our wastewater meetings, at some way, somehow, they were kind of set aside, so to speak. And I'm not saying how that happened, but during the wastewater meetings, we actually got them back to the table because of their business. That is their business.
Right.
And we have the flow, they have the need for it. They could use 200,000 gallons just on their own.
Oh,
So
wow.
the ideal situation was if they built the plant that, and we had the flow that we're paying for anyway, so be it. But after several tries, we got them to the wastewater meeting and then just, moved from there. But it's getting as many people to the table, but with that, and I think I'm not even sure which meeting, it may have been the wastewater meeting, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that at some point Paul was discussing the pipe that runs along the railroad tracks. And my concern is whether or not, if that pipe, is the DEP having us evaluate it? Is that a sensitive area? And how does that affect this transfer station? Because that would be the location for it to go. Because I remember I asked, what pipe would it go down? And it would go down that.
Yeah, Gene, I can answer that question. It would go down the force main that the Black Creek pump station is feeding now. It would be the same force main, and we are evaluating that force main and the integrity of that force main as part of our asset management plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that is being evaluated as part of the process. And just to answer another question, another concern, and I just want to mention this: if Wind River or Earth Care or Witness Wind River, if they were interested in building their own transfer station, it is potentially, it could be, they might need to potentially apply for a connection. They have to get connection fees, and the connection fees may limit them. It might be so costly that, and even the construction of the transfer station, it may be too costly for them to even consider it.
And
So go ahead, Gene.
that was one of the things is actually, so if there's no connection fees involved in this route, is the VTMUA not being shortchanged to some degree because those fees are set up to stabilize rates. And
Oh, you got to.
would they not have to
remember,
pay, somebody would still have to pay the county.
Right, yeah, there's a county fee too. It's not just the Vernon Township MUA connection fee. There potentially could be a Sussex County MUA connection fee.
Right, so who pays them?
Well, That's if they build the transfer station themselves, they're going to be responsible for that connection fee.
And if Vernon Township took out the financing, who's responsible for the connection fees to the county?
Would there be a connection fee because it's part of the pump station, right? So
Well, no. Let me back up. The point I was trying to make, if the transfer station is part of pump station 2, the new pump station,
There's no connection.
there may not be a
there's
connection
no
fee.
fee.
If they built it on their own somewhere else and they had property and built a transfer station, they could potentially be considered. They would have to get potentially have to have a connection fee.
Understood.
To them. So that's what I meant with that. And I mean the whole thing. What we're looking into is we're going to look at this in as much detail as possible, and then hopefully this subcommittee on this whole issue, the transfer station, we could do some kind of report on our findings, and then eventually recommend them to the township on how we think we should proceed. So,
But
so
just to clarify, if the transfer station were being constructed along with Pump House 2, and there would be connection fees due to SCUMA, to the county?
We
I
don't
believe
think so. We don't think so, and that's what Kristen and I are saying, is that it's part of our capacity to be able to use that capacity to our judgment. Now, we may have a dialogue with them where they may disagree with that, but based on it, we only use less than 200, maybe 204,000 gallons out of a 638,000 gallon a day fee. We have an opportunity to recover some of that by what we do with Wind River or any other entity in the town, because we're managing our own sewage systems.
I realize that, but it could be a huge number.
It could be, but that's what
That number
we're waiting for.
Determined.
But Gene, we're waiting for that number to come back from Dave Bauer, so we have an idea what that is, so we can talk with real numbers instead of sitting here in kind
No,
of.
I'm talking about with the county. I'm just saying it's a basic thing. Either it's a fee that'll be due or it's not. That's what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, I think the whole thing right now is that we're all talking hypotheticals, and we need to talk about like real numbers and find out what our real court plan of action would look like. We do have some action items that we're waiting for. We're waiting for Dave Bauer to get back to us on a couple of things. Like I said, I'm speaking with bond counsel tomorrow about a couple other things. So I was going to ask him about this as well. So I think, like Mike said, I think the whole idea about having these subcommittees is that we're going to discuss it. We're going to look into it. We're going to come up with some findings and then report back to the board, what we think the best course of action is. I mean, again, this whole conversation and us looking and the board looking in this direction and the township looking in this direction is to reduce our financial burdens. We are looking at 2023 and you're looking at massive rate increases on the ratepayers, to cover a $1.525 million debt portion of a bill, that it's astronomical. So the whole idea here is to explore it so that we can hopefully, try and do our best to reduce that financial burden, not only on our ratepayers, but also, from the township side on the taxpayers. And I'm not going to speak to the township side because this is anyway, but, obviously they're intertwined.
I think Gene brings up a point, and we'll put that on the list of concerns here, is what do we need to address with SCUMA for connection fees? So we have it on the checklist. I think that's a good point. Let's utilize it.
I agree. And that is going to be evaluated by an engineer. Like once we get an engineer, that's going to be part of their task. They're going to look at it and give us real numbers and give us technical information. Anything else about that? Any questions about the transfer station subcommittee?
Have we discussed it with SCUMA?
No.
Not at all.
I think it's premature. I think we have to get our facts straight
Yes.
and get more information before we even approach them.
Jean, are you aware, you said this has been going on for several years. Are you aware of any conversations with SCUMA about a transfer station?
Yes, there were conversations with SCUMA when EarthCare was first looking at taking it on itself, on their own, because I think Harry may have been in contact. I'm not exactly sure who was in contact,
Mm-hmm.
but the meetings took place with Dave Bauer, myself, and Harry.
Okay.
And I think I'm not sure if I even forget if John Skerber was there or not at the time, but like I said, there was communication.
Okay.
With them.
I guess I'm just wondering whether there might be a concern from SCUMA about septage coming into their plant in bulk, as opposed to them being able to control it. I don't.
I'm not sure that should be an issue with them.
Well, it might be an issue in terms of their treatment train. I don't know all the ins and outs of wastewater treatment, but I'm not sure whether they might have, for instance, kind of a holding tank up front for their septage that allows them to kind of meter it into their treatment process, as opposed to putting all of this anoxic, wastewater into their train that might upset their process.
I believe they have equalization basins prior to the treatment plant.
For septic?
I mean, yeah, it is.
So we
definitely.
At one
point in time. Go ahead, Kristen.
So then, I mean, if they use equalization, then we have to be prepared to do the same thing. I know this is part of the engineer's job, but we're going to have to make sure that we have those conversations with SCUMA right up front to understand those kinds of consequences that can affect the design. Because if we have to equalize the flow on our end, then we're going to have to put in some additional tankage.
I agree with you, Kristen. It's obviously prior to starting the design of the pump station or transfer station or both, we're going to obviously with the engineer have some discussions with SCUMA I'm certain that an engineer will want those discussions because it'll affect the design. So we're pretty far away from doing it. But once we have an engineer on board and decide how we're going to move forward, then we'll be talking about those items.
When septic gets dumped off at SCUMA now, I mean, does it go to a special area or does it go to the head of the plant? I mean,
That's what I'm asking.
That's a fairly simple thing. You can ask any of the truck drivers for EarthCare, like where it goes. It's either going to the head of the plant or to a separate area. So I think that's fairly easy.
What I was trying to answer. I have done a tour of the Sussex County MUA, the treatment plant for Vernon, and I also encourage everyone else eventually to, if you haven't seen our system, but you should probably do a tour of the Sussex County MUA because it's to your benefit to give you a better understanding how it all works. I am certain that they have an equalization system prior to the treatment plant, and I think that's part of their design already.
Yeah,
but
Mike, when I was there for the tour, I think we went in 2016, and that's actually what happened is we were in, let's call it the Vernon plant, and we were watching the septic trucks pull in, and they were pulling in, going past the building, and that's when the question came up, and I asked them, well, why can't we put that in our own pipe? And that's okay, but they were going in and they were, taking it to a plant there. I think it separates it because on the tour, I think that's what they explained to us too, how it separates it.
Yeah. No, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think that these are all good questions and good points everyone's making.
Don't drink the water when you're there.
Yeah. Right. Any other comments or questions about the transfer station before we move on? All right, let's move on to the sewer service area subcommittee. Danelle, I apologize. Who's on that subcommittee?
I'm sorry, my computer just froze. I'm sorry. I can't even get my.
I think the food service area subcommittee is me and Paul Carney. I think it is. I apologize if I'm wrong. The only update.
Sorry, I got it to work.
There really,
Paul Carney.
yeah. There's really no update on that. The only thing that we are waiting for is we did ask Mott McDonald for a estimate of costs to address all the open items that are required to complete the sewer service area submission to the NJDEP. We already submitted a letter from the county. The county health department submitted that portion of it. This is only in my understanding from Danelle, there's only a couple items left. Whether we get a cost estimate or we continue just having some work on that. Danelle, from your perspective, is it something that we need to get a cost from Mott McDonald, or can we just proceed with them handling the rest of the submission?
I think we can just proceed with them with handling the rest of the submission. I have asked her in for a timeline, which would include obviously a cost because we can see how much we're looking at. But I have not received anything back regarding that.
Yeah.
I know too with the items from the DEP, I had asked her, and I guess the board can make this decision if they want to. I had asked her regarding those 3 locations of areas of environmental concern, if we were required to pass a resolution or something formal that would state what the board agreed to at the last meeting to go ahead and remove those 3 areas of concern. But I have not heard back.
I'm glad you brought that up, Danelle. Do you know exactly what those 3 areas of concern are?
Yes. I wish I had a map on me. Yes. So if you're looking at a map of Sand Hill, right at the intersection, like 94, right there, it's the parking lot that's to the left, Mountain Creek's parking lot. There's an area behind that parking lot along 94. There's 2 lots there. That's an area of environmental concern. Another area is it's the very corner of the golf course. It's like down at it's a very strange area. Just a portion of the golf course. That's an area of environmental concern. And then the third is actually over, if you're looking at Black Creek, the development over there. It's kind of like the area closest to 94. That's like on the back end of that development. I'm sorry, I wish I had a map.
Is that near off of Sand Hill Road? Like, is that like back behind the pump station number 2?
Yes.
Yes.
So just so everyone understands what the DEP has expressed to us, if that we, and we have a proposed map, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Danelle, if we were to take those environmentally sensitive areas out of the proposed map, it would possibly speed up the process to get us an approved sewer service area map. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, so the issue right now by keeping those environmentally sensitive areas in there is that we'd have to go through some really long rigmarole to try and get them to approve the sewer service area as it stands. Obviously, the issue is right now, those areas are actually, I believe they're already in the sewer service area. But when it was originally approved, the idea was that there was going to be more development over there. So they just approved it. As far as my understanding with Paul DeMuro went, that's what he explained, that they just approved it. But now, they're really taking a look at it now, and they have the concerns about the environmentally sensitive areas. So, I know we mentioned this at the last meeting and the meeting prior about those areas that if we do remove them, any development that would be done in those 3 locations, they would have to get approvals to expand sewer service in those areas, and that would be on the developer and would have to be addressed at another time. But, the alternative is that this could take another 2 years to get approved. And
Right. So what I'd like to propose, and I want to see what everyone else on the board, what their opinion is. If we were to direct Sarin to redo the map and then identify those particular areas, and then with the request to remove those, is that the direction that does the MUA want to take?
I have just one question. The area that's behind the two lots behind the parking lot, you said, are those lots that go toward the lots towards McAfee or the lots towards Sand Hill Road, towards the railroad tracks?
It's towards, no, it's like, hold on, I want to find a map because I can share my screen with you.
I believe, Gene, it's towards the railroad track and not towards McAfee.
Where Leisure Lane is not where the Masters property was or the Kelly property.
Correct.
But more towards Leisure Lane by the railroad tracks that way.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we were to, I think what's prudent is to ask Rin to identify that exact area, give it and present us the map, and then at the next meeting we can make it. And we don't have to make the decision now, but to review it, what he comes up with, and then make a decision whether they want to remove that. Because the benefit of that, as Danelle says, that'll speed up the process to get our sewer service area map approved. Like, I don't think the township can wait 2 years to get a sewer service area map approved. So that's my personal opinion, but I don't, everyone else may have a different opinion. Does that sound reasonable? A reasonable approach? You want to direct Sarin to do that?
Based on what I've seen of this map and what I'm looking at right now, I don't even know that this would ever be a functioning area that you would need a sewage system put in place, or anybody would build there for a sewage system. So,
Sorry.
So from my standpoint, I don't even know why they're there in the first place, because they have no value as far as being built on, from what I see, unless Gene can enlighten us on something that might come from that.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think everyone wants to see a map. I personally want to see it on the map and exactly where the area is. And so we'll have to tell Sarin to identify those areas to the best of her, what she knows, and then send us all the map. I mean, I agree with Andy, that would be the case, but we have to decide. What we have to do is decide what we're going to present to the DEP to get approved. So we have to have a definitive plan, and when we give it to the DEP, if that's the feedback that we got, then this may be the best approach to speed up the process.
If they can't build there, there's no reason why that area should hold us back. Let's move it out, have Sarin take it out of there, and maybe that'll help us move forward.
Yeah.
I think, I just want to clarify, I think the concern is not so much the two lots that were by the one parking lot, but more so the area that's kind of just under Black Creek and that development over there. Because I guess they could hypothetically expand that, the development there, and we would be removing it from the sewer service area, but
yeah.
But again,
so I think
it's really worth waiting 2 years.
Yeah, right. So we're going to direct, unless anybody has any objection, we're going to direct Sarin to remove those from the map and identify it, and then we'll move forward with the submission.
It would be good to know where that area is by Black Creek Sanctuary, because that was also, depending on how far down, was it near where the sledding was, going back there, or was it where the proposed indoor water park was? So
yeah, no, I agree, Gene. We have to be careful before we make a final decision. So
Yeah, I mean,
let's-
you're looking to remove something from the service area which means you're losing a potential hookup perhaps somewhere down the line, which is something that we want more of, not less of. So it's something that really has to be thought through.
Yeah, and it could just be in the back where the sledding used to be, where it goes down, in the back there.
yeah.
That looks like I think it sounds like we need to take a field trip here and take a look at it ourselves.
Well, Danelle, I would just have ask Sarin to identify the areas so we know where they are, and then send everybody a map.
I actually, I just finished an email to her, so yeah.
There you go. Any other questions about the sewer service area before we move on? All
Not at
right,
this time.
so, good, thanks. Pump Station 2, who are I apologize to know, who's the Pump Station 2 subcommittee?
Pump Station 2 is you, and I think,
And
well,
me.
yeah, I think it was Kristen. We just switched it at the last.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously, we don't really have much to update the MUA. Unless, Kristen, do you have anything that you want to mention?
No, it was just that, again, it was that meeting that happened that I wasn't able to attend,
Yes,
right?
that happened yesterday. That was what we updated up on.
Right, so it's obviously potentially related to transfer station, so we did talk about that. The only other item is we started the process of the funding through the iBank, and then we're just waiting to hear back from the iBank, unless Danelle has any other updates.
No updates on that, sorry.
Good. All right. Any questions about Pump Station 2?
Maybe a general update or discussion, Danelle, on the checklist that we've been working on for safety issues. Do we know where?
Yeah.
And that's partly because of Pump Station, a lot because of Pump Station 2, but I wanted to see if we could just touch on that with this.
Yeah, that was, it's part of my administrative update, but we can go over it now. So I did speak with Sarin. This was like last month. I spoke with Sarin because the real areas of concern that I had that there was some discussion with myself and Howie that the railings that were mentioned in the safety review, they had already been addressed when OSHA was out. I guess it was a few years ago they came out. And they had an issue with it. So they installed railings. That being said, Sarin had said, the railings are probably not up to code. But the idea at the time was to put some railings in there for safety, knowing that Pump Station 2 would be, rehabbed at some point. That being said, she did say she might be able to take a visit to the site to see if it's really a safety concern. After speaking with Howie, he said that OSHA did come out after they were installed and did approve and say, this is fine for safety purposes. I think they probably just knew that it's not going to be up to code because of the situation. So there's that. There are a couple other items that Howie has taken care of. The electrician came out from E&M, and they updated all the electrical boxes so that everything's labeled now, so people know, what switches are what. So that's a positive. We also have there were chains that needed to be installed. I thought they needed to be purchased still, but Howie said no, they actually have been sitting at Pump Station 3 in storage, so those will be set up to be installed as well. That's really it. Those were the big items on the safety review that were really left are those railings. And there were a couple of things that were pointed out at each pump station that the harnesses weren't located at each pump station. But we don't keep harnesses at each pump station. They're picked up there's a storage area at Pump Station 3, and they pick up the harnesses, they put them in the truck, and they take them on their rounds. We don't have ones located at each area. So I understand the concern there, but they don't, in practice, they don't travel to each location without having those safety harnesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we've narrowed that list down considerably. Can you publish that so we could see it?
Yeah, I'll send it around to you guys.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, just quickly, Gene, just for your edification, we had someone come in and do a safety review, a pretty thorough safety review to identify any kind of safety issues. And out of that, we identified what we needed to do to address these safety issues. And obviously Pump Station 2 had a lot of those. So we're trying to address these. And I do have to say, Danelle and Howie are doing a great job to address those. And I think collectively, I'll speak for myself, but I think the entire MUA wants to make sure that these working conditions are safe. And that's pretty critical. So I think we made some headway. I think Andy's suggestion is great. Danelle, if you can update everyone on that, what's been done,
Yep.
so we can show what kind of progress we made. I think that's great. So everyone's doing a great job there. Anything else on that? Next is the Bylaws Personnel Subcommittee. I don't know if there's any, again, Danelle, I don't know who's on that subcommittee.
It's
if any-
Andy and Dave.
Yes, Dave and
Yes,
Andy.
we're here.
We actually updated that at the last meeting, and I was just checking the site, and I'm going to send you the reports again, but we did do a report and update on the bylaws, and we've made some small suggestions. And one of the things that we need to address, though, is a definition of hardship. If I remember correctly, Dave, I'm looking at the document now, and that was probably the biggest part of it, was doing that. But we did do a full report on the final reviews, and we made some grammatical fixes on them, as we had discussed, and made sure they were correct. We need to update the fees online, and I checked those and they seem to be up to date. So I'm going to do a double check on one that I had a question on here, and that's about it. But I need to get these minutes back to Colette, and then I also asked Colette to update the website with the names and the proper chairs and where they sit, and that's been done. So we've got those parts of the bylaws done in that section. Anything else, Dave?
Good.
No, that's basically what we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I can add,
So-
too, we did post that part-time position for part-time sewer laborer for the MUA. It's been weeks now. We just received today our second application at like 5:30 today. So we have 2 applications now. I don't know how long the board wants to keep this open. If you want to wait a little bit longer to see if there's any more, that's obviously entirely up to you.
That's surprising, I guess. If I had to, I would think that you get more of a response.
I'm not surprised. Everybody's getting all this extra unemployment money. Nobody wants to work.
There you go. Paul's right about that. Let me just double check. It's on the township website, the MUA website, Indeed.com. Is that correct?
I don't think it's on the township website. It's on the MUA website. It's on the League of Municipalities website. It's not on Indeed. If you want me to put it on Indeed, I can put it on Indeed. I just, like, in my experience with like government, I think putting it on the website and the League of Municipalities, I actually am surprised that I didn't get anything, but Paul,
I think it is on the town website, because I saw it. It was listed along with the part-time work for the recycling. They were
Okay.
kind of, I think they're both listed.
All right, yeah, Irene might have pulled it and put it on there too.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, anybody had any suggestions of what we should do to better advertise it?
Well, you have 2 applicants. Why don't you speak with them and see what you think?
We could do that too.
Actually, I only have a copy of one applicant, and the applicant that I reviewed there, I think was had some potential. I haven't seen the other application to know.
I just emailed it to you. Colette just
Bingo.
forwarded it to me, so I forwarded it over to you and Dave. We just got it today at 5:30.
Right,
Okay.
because the first applicant
All right.
for a part-time
All right.
position had some potential.
Yes.
All right, so what I can suggest, Dave and Andy, I guess you said it to everybody, but why don't you get look it over, and then we'll if it looks like it's worth pursuing, and then we'll look more closely at them, and then go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yep.
You know what, I have one question. The advertising for, you have it, is it on the MUA site?
Yes.
Is there a problem if it were also posted on the township site?
I think that's what they were mentioning before. I think it is
I
on the
think it
township
is.
site.
Is it on there?
Yep.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and if it's not,
Yeah, it's
because
there.
you probably get a good response if it's on the township website, right, Gene?
I don't know if you would or you wouldn't, but I guess it's a specific, it's a specific job. You may have to, sometimes with positions like that, you have to kind of go find them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, our closing date is September 15th. So we have a while, obviously, before closing. I guess I just
Well,
anticipated we would get more.
I can tell you this: if you put it on Indeed, you'll get a response.
Yeah.
I'm just warning you. All right, let's move on then from that. Water Supply Subcommittee, and I believe that's Kristen and myself. We were able to have Danelle organized a meeting with the mayor, the business administrator, myself, Danelle, and Corey. And the purpose of that was to try to update the Mayor Burrell, and I know Chuck is already familiar with it. I think it was an excellent meeting. Corey led most of the meeting. He gave out several documents that Colette scanned and shared with everybody. He also had several excellent maps that give you an accurate picture and an understanding of the water supply issues, where the areas we don't have pipes and where we do have pipes. So if you wanted a copy of those maps, you would have to go into the MUA office to see them, and I know they have them in there. There was a lot of discussion on how the reason why we're doing this and why we're pushing it forward. If we were able to increase the water supply in various parts of the township, there's a potential that we can increase our wastewater flows. I'm going to just turn it over to Danelle, and then she'll give it like a kind of from her perspective why we set up the meeting, what was accomplished, what we did, and what we're going to do moving forward. Go ahead, Danelle.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, again, this was another really productive meeting. Corey had some really great maps that he showed us, and we were really talking about how to bring water to town center, and how to do it, whether it's something that the town or the MUA could do on their own, by drilling their own well, getting allocation, or if it's something that we would kind of be forced to work with Suez on. So we kind of decided then we would have to be working with Suez because of the allocation amounts that exist currently. And we would have to go and request additional allocation, which Mike can speak to that. I don't think we're ever going to get. So the idea, in order to bring water into town center, would be obviously all the upgrades. And I don't know if the board is aware of the amount of upgrades that would have to happen, but they're substantial. It's significant. The positive, though, with water upgrades in comparison to sewer upgrades is that the iBank has debt forgiveness when it comes to potable water. upgrades. So even with a larger expenditure, you could most certainly see, that sort of utility being in the black. That being said, I think with iBank, it gets a little strange because of franchise areas and what would be a franchise area for the MUA versus the existing franchise area for Suez. So that is some of the discussion I'm going to be having tomorrow with bond counsel, just from his experience. I want to kind of get all my ducks in a row before I even go to iBank to discuss anything like that with them. Again, the whole idea with bringing water to town center is really to help out businesses, to market, in order to bring businesses, I think, and have good businesses that want to stay, you're going to really need to have sewer and water. Everybody talks about having sewer infrastructure, but I think they forgot the most important step is having water infrastructure. So we are addressing that. And again, everything's kind of hypothetical. We just want to see what can be done, what we can do to really improve our town center as it stands currently, and what can help us financially in the future.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so I think one of the things that we both identified is, as Danelle said, Danelle's going to do the due diligence to check with the iBank on the possibilities of funding. That's obviously a major concern, and then some kind of continuing the dialogue with Suez, similar to what was done in the past with various phases. There was phase one, which was CVS, that brought water supply to CVS and some of the areas around that. Phase two brought water down Church Street to Omega Drive and to the municipal building. Phase three would be, generally speaking, would be taking water supply from Main Street all the way from CVS Main Street down to the Acme. So one of the next logical steps was to start up the dialogue again with Suez. A meeting has been, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danelle, a meeting has been set up for September 18th.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
September 18th, and it's going to be a Zoom meeting with Suez. It'll be 2 or 3 of their engineers and also their regional manager, and then and all the people that we just talked about. So it is a lot to digest. There's a lot of technical information. It's fairly complicated. It's not straightforward. It's extremely complicated, especially if you look at the map and start to read all the technical information. It does become, it can be potentially confusing. I somewhat understand how it all works. Danelle has a good understanding. Feel free to, contact either one of us, and if you have any particular questions. But I think the next order is to a business is to sit down with Suez and then try to go once over again what is needed, what kind of infrastructure upgrades that are needed to move forward, and how that's going to possibly occur. So, any questions from anybody?
So this is the same proposal that's been tossed around for years, correct?
Yeah, it's essentially finishing up the last portion of town center, which is Main Street. Unfortunately, there's no water supply lines that run down 515 and then make a left onto 94. If that was part of the upgrade would be to install a new water supply line along 515 and then create essentially a loop in town center. And that would supply, I don't know the number of potential commercial properties, or I don't know that detail, but it's essentially bringing the last part of water supply to town center.
I can just tell you that I went to a meeting, and I think I have notes on it. And it happened to have been tax day. It was April 15th, 2014, because when I read this letter, this May 18th letter from Buck, Seifert, and Jost, and they spoke about going over the golf course to bring water from down at South. that's exactly what was being discussed in 2014. So,
Right.
and like I said, and I know when Harry was in office, there was a lot that went into looking into this, and what kept coming back was, $3 million.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, there is a cost to do the infrastructure upgrades. Buck Seifert and Jost have given estimates on behalf of Suez, and all that information and all the different scenarios are in that that documentation that Colette sent out to the entire MUA. So there's a lot to read and there's a lot to digest. But it's I agree with you. And I think that the other point I wanted to make was, my understanding is phase 2 was done. I don't know when it was completed, but the last, the look at this, or it was, I believe it was sometime in May of 2018. That was the last correspondence from Suez to the township. And it was in particular discussing the last phase of the water supply upgrades. Go ahead, Paul.
So you were talking about debt forgiveness. Does that apply to public and private entities, or is it only for the public? And if it's only public, how does that work with Suez being involved?
Yeah, so here's my, oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I could answer it, and hopefully Danelle can add to it. It is very complicated, and it's a great question. When this was looked at prior, when there was a potential public-private partnership, they were not able to access iBank or infrastructure money. If you were to form a water utility, a public water utility, then you would have, and that's something that Danelle is going to find out, but you would access that funding, and then qualify for that debt forgiveness. Now it's easier. My understanding, it's easier for a public utility to get the debt forgiveness as opposed to a private entity. They can access infrastructure funds, but the terms are different than a public utility. Now Danelle can answer that better probably.
Yeah, so there is debt forgiveness, like Mike just said, for a public utility, which we are. That's a positive. Considering that there is a Suez franchise area, the question is, if we do upgrades and it's ultimately for a public utility, for us to take on a water utility, the question is, does it matter if it also positively benefits a private franchise area? If the only way we can get it is by, doing the upgrades beyond further down 94 to bring it into town center in our franchise area, what would be our franchise area? So those are questions that I do have, and why I want to speak with people that have a lot of experience with iBank and funding before I even go to iBank. So I think that there's kind of like 3 scenarios. They say, yeah, sure, we'll pay for all of it and we'll have debt forgiveness, or they'll say, absolutely no, there's no way you're going to get any debt forgiveness by doing this, even if you are a public utility. Or they could turn around and say, well, you can split it and say this portion would be, this area and this portion of the project would be forgiven, that would have a debt forgiveness, and we might have to fill out 2 applications or 2 separate projects for that. And then the other portion at the other end that would benefit the private entity, even though it's required for us, might have to not be through iBank. So it's just, again, exploratory. We want to see what our options are.
Okay, makes sense.
And just something that I've brought up before is, at any point, if somebody, when everybody throws around this term, town center so freely, if somebody could please explain to me. I mean, we're talking about Main Street, we're talking about Route 94, we're talking about the corridor of Route 94 and 515. So I guess what I would like to see are exactly what properties are impacted, because what the original plan was, it's shrunk from.
Hello?
You're froze,
Gene?
Gene.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you froze, Gene.
froze.
Yeah, he's frozen. Danelle, you know the map that Corey gave out, and I'm looking at it.
Yes.
The
Wasn't
Vernon
it-
Valley Water System
wasn't that
proposed
emailed to
service
everybody?
expansion area. Danelle?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, Danelle, that map that Corey had available,
Yes.
and it was hand drawn. Like if we can somehow get that to everybody,
Yeah.
I think it's enormously helpful because it answers, the question that Gene has, and then it gives everybody a really good understanding what we're talking about when we're talking about water supply.
I think I'm back, by the way. Sorry.
Oh,
I think
You're
I'm
back.
Sorry. But, and just to that point is because in speaking with many, let's call them contractors that are very familiar with the terrain of the town, there's a lot of ledge rock in some of these areas. So, that's another factor that has to be considered. And I know, all the experts will give you, reports and everything else, but some of this information we already have available. And that's something, like I said, just to take into consideration.
Yeah, and I agree, Gene. So what I don't know if you heard, but Danelle's going to share the map that Corey presented, and all I have to tell you is that he presented to Mayor Burrell, and he was able to get a really good understanding pretty quickly by just looking at that map. So she's going to. I think if you can get that map to everybody, Danelle, that would be. I would appreciate that.
Yep.
Were there any other reports that he handed out at that time?
Yeah. Yeah, Gene, to answer that, I after the meeting that I had Colette scan all the documents that Corey gave us, and Colette sent that out in an email. I believe you were on it. I'm not 100% certain if you were on that email, but if Gene wasn't on that email, Colette or Danelle, if you could share those documents with Gene.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that'll give you a better understanding on what we're looking at. And so the next meeting is September 18th, which is a Zoom meeting. I know Kristen's going to be there, and I and Danelle will be able, after that meeting, we'll give another update it will be at the October 1st meeting. Any other questions about water supply before we move on? The finance subcommittee is myself and Andy. I'm going to defer to Andy. Is there anything particularly you want to give an update on that?
We actually did the update in the last meeting, and one of the things that Danelle did was she shared a spreadsheet with me regarding where the cost savings are that we've had some impact on. So we've been looking at the labor savings, Danelle, and so far it was like $3,200 savings just in labor over the previous month.
Yes.
And I think when we look at this from an overall perspective, we're on target to save somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 conservatively.
Woohoo!
Right?
Yes.
I'm being conservative here. And I guess the question is where are we with the DPW agreement? Has that gone forward to its next phase?
Yeah, so the next council meeting is, oh my gosh, the 14th.
Right.
So I'll be sending it over to Marcy so that can get to you and Jean for council.
Okay, so that, and then the other question will have to be is that, Jean, you and I have to make sure that Chuck does have a dialogue with the union before we get stuck with that again, okay?
I'm sorry that he has a dialogue on what?
With the union, that make sure that Chuck has a dialogue with the union of the DPW, that he knows what that agreement's about.
I would like to say that that's really up to the mayor to make sure that he has a dialogue.
Yeah, I know. I just don't want it to be a mess. It should be cleaned up so we don't get kicked back twice. That's just my opinion, but I agree with you that it should be with the mayor. I think that was it, but I've sent those two reports to update the charters on the website back on the 24th to Danelle.
Yeah, I just sent them over to Pavia, and I actually just replied to your email. I apologize. I misunderstood. when you sent them over. I didn't
Okay.
see where they went on the website. And now I just looked and I realized that there's a charter link. I did not see that before. So
Right.
I sent them over to her, and I actually want them set up like underneath the subcommittees.
Exactly.
So people don't get confused.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we should do is so we make sure that we update the public with transparency here, that these reports should be documented with the, the progress we're making, because, people may not be attending this meeting, but somebody says, well, what happened? Here's what we're working on. I know I've been talking about the charters online.
No, I 100% agree with Andy. And just to add to that, we do need to get that onto the website to show the progress we made. And I do have to give everybody credit on this MUA, Danelle, Colette, everyone across the board. All those savings was a result of the tremendous effort that we made since February this year to get to this point. I think we did a great job, and we all should be commended for the hard work. So I appreciate everybody who's done that, because we're really benefiting the ratepayers, and we're benefiting the township residents, everyone. So I appreciate that. Any questions from anybody, or anything else, Andy, you want to add?
I guess, Danelle, the question is how could we make that cost savings chart publicly palatable to look at without all these other numbers or names that are in it?
I mean, I can give like estimates. I don't necessarily like doing that, because I don't know if anything's going to come up. If there's an emergency or something, I don't want to put out there like, okay, this is my bottom line estimate. But if there's an emergency that's going to take 10 guys for some reason, I don't necessarily want to.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I tend to agree with you, Danelle. I think that any savings we may make or come up with, we should maybe make mention of it at the end of the year, the fiscal year, because like unexpected things will come up, and then if we say, oh, we saved $300,000, and then at the end of the year something comes up and now that 300,000's gone, they're like, where did you save anything? So I'd rather wait till we have a fiscal year under our belts of savings, and then state it.
Right.
I agree with you. I think that's good. We'll put that back in our holster till later.
No, that's a good point, Paul. Thanks.
I think it was Danelle's
anything
point.
else? Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, you're just right. You're smart and you agree with her. That's right. You like that? Anything else, Andy, or anybody else have any questions about the finance subcommittee? Okay, moving on to the administrator update. Danelle, anything to add? I know you talked a little bit about the pump station too and other things. Is there anything in particular else you want to add?
Well, I already updated about the safety review, and I'll get you guys a copy of that. Two other things. One, I know Ryan Develez, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, so I apologize if he ever hears me say that. But he had put in an OPA request. He's the guy that owns the Brookside Florist building. So he had put in an OPA request, regarding his property and things like that. So it took me a while to find the paperwork. And I also had to go through a lot of emails. Colette and I went through a ton of emails to get those over to him. So we did finally get that over to him last week. So that's taken care of. And the big thing are the Sentinels. So the Sentinels, Ray Cornetto came out and he's been setting them up for the past couple of weeks. Unfortunately, we did find out when he went to Pump Station 2 that they were never set up correctly by the initial company that installed them. It was not set up for any alarms really to go off. So there could have been alarms that went off at that station and nobody was notified.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you a second there? That raises a question to me. So if there were no alarms that could have gone off because that was improperly set up, let's say, for lack of a better term, were there records of people answering alarms to the pump station that may have cost us overtime money?
So the issue there is that the time and record keeping for individual responses to alarms, what we get in finance are copies of time cards, clocking in and clocking out when they had to respond to alarms, but I don't recall ever seeing specific alarms mentioned on those time cards. So unfortunately, I do not believe that I have the ability to do that. The only other documentation that we have are like weekly reports, which we talked about in the past. Some were filled out and some weren't. And I don't believe that in those weekly reports they had anything about, issues at specific stations.
So we don't know.
We don't know. And the positive thing is that moving forward, we will. The positive thing too is that, they're going to be set up next week. Ray finished, I believe he finished up, I think he has like 1 or 2 lift stations left to do. But he will be here next week to get me access and Colette access online to the Sentinel system. That will help reduce our costs as well. Right now we pay the engineer to run reports off that system. So that's something that I'll be able to do for the board on a regular basis. So that's a positive, but unfortunately, it wasn't picked up until someone went to actually set them up correctly.
So all along,
Yeah.
so wait, hold on. So all along we had this system that would send alarms or not send alarms, but they were recorded somewhere. And we didn't even have the ability of our own to run reports on this. We were paying somebody to run reports off of our own system.
Correct.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I want to add to that, because I did talk to Ray about the same thing, and I want everyone to clearly understand what was happening here. And a few years ago, this system was purchased, and the company that installed that for how much money it was, never set up that system correctly to monitor high and low level alarms. When Ray is done with his work on the Sentinel systems and doing all the work he's doing, he's going to provide us a very clear report of what he found. And I personally find it particularly disturbing that this has been going on for such a long period of time, and it was never identified by anyone, and it's really disturbing. And I think it needs to be closely looked at. I think we need to find out who installed those Sentinel systems, what we paid for, why it wasn't set up right, and why no one followed up and did it correctly. Just to give
Now we all know that I always go to the sour part of the apple on these things. Do we know factually that this was not set up properly, or is there a chance it was possibly dismantled?
Well, that's a good question, Paul. That's a possibility that was. I could tell you from the conversation I had with Ray, it was his opinion that it most likely whoever installed the Sentinel system didn't set it up properly right from the beginning. It may have been dismantled after it was installed, but this is why we need to get the records of the company to put the Sentinel system in, and to get an exact record of exactly what was done when it was installed. So whatever we do, we need facts.
Well, obviously the people that would have signed off on it are no longer involved, but so someone somewhere signed off and paid for a system as complete that potentially wasn't completed.
Correct. The Sentinel system, for the most part, really wasn't doing much at all, and was not monitoring. It wasn't monitoring pumping, clogs, door entry. There's a number of things that it's now monitoring, and that's going to be and all that information, that data is going to be sent back to a central computer in the MUA office, and then it's also could be accessed on individuals' iPhones. So we're once it's completed, we'll have a lot better understanding of of how this wastewater system operates and how we can make improvements. So just for as an example, and I'm not sure the correct number, but as soon as this was properly installed, we received almost over 180 phone calls immediately that needed to be examined and looked at. So it's going to be looked at, I promise you.
Well, you know,
I'm not.
In many respects, we're very lucky that there were no overflows onto Route 94 and other things with high and low alarms that weren't working.
That's correct.
Mike, if these
Go
phone
ahead.
calls registered, did it show a date when they started?
No. What I'm referring to is on this week when he got it all set up and functional. There was immediately that we were receiving several phone calls because the alarms were working correctly.
No,
So that was
when you said that, I was of the understanding that these were like backlog, like email was when it doesn't work and then they all come through.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, correct. So just so you know, Ray is going to give a detailed report of what he did, and then he also is going to make several observations that he saw when he was out there. And I happened to talk to him this week while he was at another item that we should know is when he was at one of the lift station, he noticed a pretty significant leak that needed to be addressed. And I think we went ahead and authorized them to, address that leak because it was extremely noticeable. So apparently there was a leak on one of the lift stations that was going on for a while and wasn't being addressed. So that's also being addressed. So all I could say is, we need to get our facts, gather all our facts before we draw any conclusions. But as Danelle said, the positive thing is we're moving forward. This particular system is going to give us better data and information, and it's also going to save us money.
Okay.
Any other questions about that?
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, I got a lot of questions, but none I'm going to ask.
No, that's true. Anything else, Danelle, on your side?
No.
All right, we're going to move over to commissioner comments. We'll start with Jean. Do you have any comments?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
Nice try.
Andy? Andy?
As I said before, Gene, welcome aboard. I know you've got a lot of history and knowledge you can share with us. And as we go forward, the goal, I think, of this commission is to make some progress. And some of the things that you're hearing now about sentinel systems, which make me angry, trying to correct some of the bad habits that were done. And I know Paul Carney wants to say a few more choice words, but I'll just say bad habits and bad processes that need to control it. We need to get better at it. And as I said in my first meeting, this is a business and we have to operate it like a business. And when we get bad things like this happening, it doesn't make for profitable or cost-saving solutions. So I think we're heading in the right direction.
I agree with you. We are in the right direction.
That's my comments for tonight, and great team.
Good. All right, Chris Wheaton.
Welcome aboard, Gene. Good to have you here.
Thanks.
Danelle, I was wondering, you said that we were not, we were missing a large payment or payment was overdue last time. Have we received payment? Or how are we doing on payments in the current situation?
Are you talking about, you're talking about
minerals?
like outstanding, yeah.
I
will run the outstanding list. I haven't done it yet because I ran it the last time. I only run it after the quarter starts. So everything was due this week. So I give time before I run delinquents again.
Okay. And then something else was occurring to me as possibly a mechanism to bring more revenue into the utility authority. And maybe this is, I mean, maybe this isn't completely out of left field, but I know at times we've talked about the potential for spreading the debt across the town if necessary, you know, if we can't increase the user base in a timely fashion. Maybe one way that that becomes palatable is if it was associated with garbage collection. You know, we don't have any, and maybe this has been discussed at the council level. I'm not sure, but you know, we don't have any municipal recycling collection or garbage collection, and if we were to take that under our roof, it would be a way. It might be you know, another source of revenue for us that could help offset you know, debts from in the sewerage area.
Yeah, I will say I have had conversations about creating a garbage utility. You know, obviously that involves a lot, right? But it's doable. That's something that we can definitely explore and talk about and find information on. You know, it's a standard utility. A lot of townships do have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just putting that out there for yeah. If you have any information on it, you know, might be good to look at. Otherwise, maybe it might be something to think about. You know, we have plenty of subcommittees going on that are pretty active right now. I know we've all kind of got our hands full, but you know,
yeah, you know what I'll do?
something.
I'll go ahead and research. I have a few things because I think I started researching it last year. I'll pull what I have in comparison to other townships and what you know, kind of what the process is for a garbage utility, because it is a little bit different, right? We have to go out and basically bid a deal with a contractor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think several years ago, Sparta was the last municipality to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's an excellent idea.
In doing something like that, though, I mean, you know, money is always part of everything, but it would have to be competitive with the you know, the private companies that come around here, because if we throw this out there and all of a sudden everybody's, you know, trash bill goes up, that's just
right.
another thing that's not going to go over very well. So
agreed.
It's gotta
Yeah,
be,
I think the ideas with the garbage utility is that you actually keep it below what people are currently paying,
right.
while generating revenue, right? Because I mean, you're guaranteeing business to one vendor.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it would be not good to start increasing garbage rates out of control for people.
And it's really just, if I might add, you know, there's many of the lake communities that handle their own, and it's included in their lake dues. So you start to get into a whole nother avenue of, you know, who's collecting the money and how, and the vendors, because there's quite a few companies that service Vernon.
Would we not have authority over those? I mean, they're part of the township still.
Yeah, we would have, if we went out to bid with a vendor. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could pick. I've never heard of this, but and I don't know if Rich, if this has ever come up in your experience, but if they can pick and choose the areas of a township that would be serviced.
I haven't experienced that, no.
Yeah. It's usually the whole town.
Yeah, I would think it would have to be the whole town. But yeah, if there are, you know, communities like that that are already getting service, then we'd have to kind of dovetail it in associate with those contracts coming to conclusion.
It almost starts to fall hand in hand with the Municipal Services Act with the snow plowing, you know, in all these communities that hire their own independent contractors. And so
Anything else, Chris? I
No, that's it.
want to follow up. I'd like to make an ongoing agenda item. I think it's a great idea, and I think we should explore it.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement that we're going to explore that and continue to explore it. It's a great idea, Chris.
Good.
Anything else, Chris?
That's all from me. Thank you, Mike.
All right, I'm gonna last Paul Carney, Dave McDermott.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base with you guys and let you know I spoke to Dean from the VFW, and I asked them, what they needed to get ready to go to hook up. They were all set to go, and then the virus hit. They were asked for a drawing from an engineer for where their grease trap is. And they submitted it back when Matt Giambi was still working. Other than that, that was the last they heard. And so if that drawing is sufficient, they're ready to go. And they also wanted to know if anybody here knew if like with the opening for the indoor dining, are they under the rules and the regulations that say you have to buy food if you're going to serve alcohol? Because they're a club technically, and I told them I didn't know if anybody here knew, but I would look into their permit and their drawing from the original engineer that they had.
Yeah, they might be, their best bet might be calling the county board of health and asking them that.
That's a good, yeah, probably. You mean for the booze, right? And the food.
Whatever the rules are going to be that apply to them. This is a health issue, so I'm figuring the board of health.
Yeah, sure.
I'm probably figuring too much on that one too. They probably won't have an answer, but that's probably who they should ask.
Well, okay, then other than that, as far as our end goes, I guess they did submit the drawing from the engineer that outlined where their grease trap was. And so I guess now they just want to know that they want the okay to go ahead and get to work.
Hey, Dave, this is Mike. And I'm going to take a leap here of faith and assume that if that drawing was submitted, we don't have it. Is it possible that they can resubmit it? And if you can make that request to resubmit it, and then we'll address that question they have. And I could be wrong, but I can assume that we don't have that map, and it's probably best that they resubmit it.
Or did they submit the drawing to the township in another capacity, and has it just been sitting there the whole time? Well, no, and then the municipal building wasn't being used, and maybe they're playing catch up and didn't get to it. But if this is something that they're looking to do and they want to move forward, maybe we could give the township a nudge if they have the paperwork, because this VFW has been kind of front and center for a long time, and they were against this and now they're for it and they want to get it done. So I don't want it to get lost in the wind, and they lose their taste to do this. We should get it strike while the iron's hot. So we gotta they want to do it, so let's get it done.
Yeah, their post commander. Their post commander told me they want to put this behind them.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think the best thing to do is you get the drawing, get whatever submission is, and to Nell as fast as possible, and then we're going to facilitate this process and tell them on behalf of the board we'll make a promise that we're going to try to make this move as fast as possible, and we'll do whatever we have to do.
Okay, we'll do. I'll call tomorrow.
But Mike, can I make a small procedural suggestion here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard Dave say, and Paul both said, we don't want to have to go back to him because we should have done our due diligence. Could we just at least maybe have Colette take a look and see if there's a folder sitting around, because there were a lot of them, and see if something just says VFW on it in the office, if she can see if she finds it before we go back to them, just to give a little bit of effort on our side to make sure we got our ducks in a row.
I have no problem with that, Andy. I'm okay with that. We can make an attempt to find the information, but if we don't have it, then to continue to, at the same time, we can ask them to send it in again.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's just, I find it damn embarrassing that we have to go do something that we can't keep our paperwork together.
Well, listen, we just approved like 6 months worth of minutes, so let's. I'm going to assume that we assume we don't have it, and if we could find it, that's great. I want to expedite it for everybody on everyone's behalf, and I think it's a great idea. Like Colette and Danelle, if you could search to see if it's there. If we don't have it, then Dave can easily ask them to submit it again. I know it's embarrassing, but we need to get past that.
Okay.
So, anything else, Dave?
No, that's it for me.
Paul Carney.
Paul Carney's left the building. No, I don't have any really comments. I pretty much spoke my piece. I do have a question though. Was there anything? You brought up the owner of the Acme or the shopping center. Has there been any more talks with him or that other guy who was paying and he wasn't hooked up? There was a couple people,
Yes.
like three specific, and the other one who there was the rock they had to get through to put their line in. Like,
Right.
Where do we stand with those 3 properties?
Yeah, so Ryan Develez is the one that owns the building that was Brookside Florist. That's the one I mentioned before. He had put in an open request regarding basically all documents that discussed his property in relation to fees. Going through the file, I did find back in, I think it was 2011 and then again in 2015, where the board agreed to not force him to hook up, but there was the agreement that that property owner was paying fees, or was to pay the fees. Now, I don't know why it wasn't set up until after the property sold. Because it's my understanding in reading those agreements that was what the agreement was, that they would pay the 1 EDU and not be forced to hook up because of they expressed it's a very big financial burden, and there's some backup notices that the former property owner had sent to the board, and that's why the board, I guess, agreed to that. I did not see anything that stated that he wasn't responsible for paying fees. So that being said, I sent that all over to him. I sent that stuff over to him first before we got through the emails, because there was almost 200 emails to go through. And I explained to him, as you can see, it does say that the fee was supposed to be paid. He does not agree. In the first email, I did explain too that the board strongly recommends reaching out to an engineer and really finding out what the cost is and what it would actually take to get through. And put a sewer pipe in and put a connection in. We discussed that at the board a couple of months ago when he was there, and he was advised to do that. So I don't know if he's going to be doing that, but I did advise him to do that again as well. Regarding we did have a meeting with the managers of the Acme Shopping Center, and they were concerned about the increasing sewer fees. Understandably, and he has concern obviously about the tenants that are there and whether, they're going to stay, and the effects of COVID, and that's something that we can speak about. I did get him over the full breakdown of all the EDUs and how it was originally set up for each one of those locations, but it's my understanding from Sarin that those are basic standard, I should say, not basic, standard calculations for retail space, which is what their EDUs are based on, their total number of EDUs are based on. So there's that. Was there another person? I don't recall if there was another person.
The Green Team building was mentioned recently, no?
The Green, that was going back, I think, last year. I do not believe. Let me look into that. I'm not going to speak on that until I look into where we are with that. Okay.
That's it for me.
Anything else, Paul?
No, that's it.
No, so I'm the remaining person. I just want to welcome Gene to the MUA. I think you're going to be very beneficial. You have a lot of background and understanding, and we welcome you on the MUA. I want to repeat myself about everyone on the MUA. Everyone, I think we're working tremendously well. We've made tremendous progress, and I think we got to continue to do that. So we're gonna focus on the progress we made, and then we're gonna continue that moving down the road. But other than that, I have no other comments, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Dave McDermott, seconded by Paul Carney.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a pleasant night and a pleasant weekend.
And let's
Good
go
night, all.
Islanders.